Hey everybody, welcome to this week's podcast. It is later on Tuesday evening, and I normally record these things much earlier than this, so hopefully I'm still awake and alert. But if I get sleepy at some point, please don't think I'm unenthusiastic about whatever I'm talking about. I'm just trying to push through and make sure to get this out on time for everybody. So anyway, bunch of cool stuff this week, so let's just jump right in. First up is a post from Vanessa that came in right after I recorded the podcast last week, so I wasn't able to include it. But luckily, not only is it not time sensitive, there's no price or release date at all yet. But it is a really awesome project. So this is a new expansion card for the Amstrad Mega PC. And for anybody unfamiliar, that's an older PC from the early 90s that's also a Sega Mega Drive or Genesis. And it's kind of interesting because I've seen pictures of these. I've never seen them in person, but it's kind of a neat collector's item because it wasn't the world's best Genesis or the world's best PC, but it's kind of neat to have them both in one. However, there's a video issue with those. So, of course, PCs are all 640 by 480 minimum, so VGA 31 kilohertz, but the Sega Genesis outputs 240p 15 kilohertz. And in order to handle that, the Amstrad Mega PCs came with a monitor that could handle both, which was pretty rare. It still is, even all the way up until the end of the CRT era, it was pretty rare to find something that could do both. Usually it's a PC monitor that handles 640 by 480 and up, and then anything below it is only 15 kilohertz. And unfortunately, those monitors are getting hard to find and are not really lasting that long. So this is a homebrew expansion project that has a couple of different things built into it. It's made by Karapi and Tito, names that I'm sure people are familiar with in both the Genesis and retro PC scene. But one of the things that this does is adds a line doubler feature so that the Genesis part outputs 31 kilohertz without any worries. So you could use any old PC CRT monitor. I'm not sure if there's any kind of scan lines added, but I think they are included via jumpers, so you could have it either always on or always off. But I gotta be honest, that video I did a couple years ago on RGB consoles on VGA monitors really proved to me that you could have an amazing experience with just basic scan lines when you line double and put it on a CRT like that. So I would just leave the jumpers on it all the time. There's no right or wrong answer. It's no lag added either way, but I think that's pretty cool for anybody that has these. So you could really still use it and it would feel the same, but now you don't have to hunt down one of those original monitors, or if you have one, you don't have to use it as much if you want to try to preserve it a little bit longer. But not only does it have all of this video features built in, it also has network support as well as a greater boot ROM to support larger sizes of hard disks, and it also has stuff from the Orpheus ISA sound card built in as well. It includes an ALS 100 chip for Sound Blaster compatibility, a Yamaha OPL3 for MIDI, and a wavetable header to support options like more advanced Roland level of MIDI if you want. So like I said when I started, there's no price or release date yet, but if you want more info, definitely check out Vanessa's post and all the links in it because this thing sounds awesome. In my opinion, if I owned a Mega PC, the Amstrad Mega PC, I would pick one of these up just because you never know when you could need it. Even if everything seems to be running okay, I would be heartbroken if I didn't buy this, then my monitor died, and then I didn't have an easy way to use it. So no pressure, but if you're lucky enough to have an Amstrad Mega PC, at least check out the post and see if you're interested. Developer Zekfu has just launched a GitHub page that showcases their reverse-engineered Game Boy Advance motherboard. At the moment, there's no plans to sell them, and none of the design files have been released, but this was created to be part of the summer Game Boy modding contest, so I'm hoping that after that's all over, Zekfu will consider doing something with these, because this is a really awesome accomplishment. And it's not just a reverse-engineered Game Boy Advance motherboard, which even if it was, I would still be sharing the news because that's an awesome accomplishment. But Zekfu tried to improve upon, I don't want to say any mistakes, but things that maybe haven't aged as well and could be improved with modern understanding and technologies. And first of all, it's a 4-layer board, which allows for a ground plane. And I don't want to get into it, but if you're a board designer, you know that that's much more complicated. Also, instead of AA batteries, it supports rechargeable batteries that can be charged through the USB-C port and be charged while the Game Boy Advance is in use, which is always a plus. The audio output has also been addressed, and Zekfu tried to improve it a little bit. And while admittedly they're not an audiophile, they are an electrical engineer, and I'm pretty sure they were able to add some filtering to make the not so great audio from the Game Boy Advance sound much better. And also, the buttons were designed with tactile domes from Snaptron. So they're not the full clicky style tactile buttons, which I prefer the middle ground, but these have a little bit more tactile feedback and should be compatible with pretty much any of the aftermarket cases and buttons. You're going to have to do a little bit of cutting and filling to deal with the USB-C ports and all of that stuff. And also, this was taken from the Game Boy Advance SP. So while it's a drop-in replacement for the original Game Boy Advance, it was based off of the layout of the SP, which was a little bit more updated. So while there's nothing that you could do with this at the moment, I'm very happy to share the project because I really hope Zekfu would consider doing something with it, anything. In fact, there's even that open source HDMI output project that maybe that could be integrated into this. So you could have something like you take a beat up old Game Boy Advance, with no backlit screen and a beat up case, and you take the main proprietary Nintendo chips off of it, take one of these and then put those chips on and have yourself a brand new Game Boy Advance that's running off all original Nintendo hardware that has a backlit screen and HDMI out. Now that's wild speculation and really freaking complicated. So I'm just I just wanted to say that to bring up a scenario in which this would be even more exciting than you might have been when you heard the first part of this. So like I said, at the moment, it's not really much out there that could be done with it just because the GitHub repository doesn't have any of the files. But I hope this turns into some pretty amazing projects because I love hearing about stuff like this. And I just think there's a whole bunch of destroyed or near destroyed Game Boy Advances that would really benefit from just pulling the proprietary chips and adding and basically buying a complete kit that you could add everything to it. Now, this is not going to be easy. This is going to be a high level install to swap chips like that, but it's not impossible. And I have a bunch of friends that do stuff like this all the time. So while it's not going to be something that everybody just plugs into their Game Boy and uses, this is definitely a pretty big deal. And I think it could result in a lot of cool stuff. There's now a new updater script for Mr. users. Sorg and the Cylon have recently released a new script that kind of speeds things up. And by the way, if I'm saying that name improperly, please correct me in the comments. I'm sorry. Everybody knows I always try my best to get the names right, but I'm terrible at it, so my apologies. But anyway, if you're a Mr. user, all you have to do is download this new script, drop it in your scripts folder, and run this one now instead of the other original updater that you were using. You could do so just by taking the SD card out and putting it in your PC, connecting over the network, or however you usually transfer files. But it's about as easy as it gets. Drop this in, fire up your Mister, run the new updater, and that's it. Or if you use the update all script, it should be as easy as just running update all, and that should automatically update itself. I would double check just to make sure by going into the settings and make sure that use new downloader is something that you could see. That's the main thumbnail pic I put for this post just to remind everybody. And if for whatever reason you're not able to see that or it doesn't seem like it's updating, you could delete updateall.sh, updateall.ini, and then just manually download it and put it back, and then just go back and reset your settings for this. So any questions, check out the post. I have all of the info that you might need in here. And as always, if you have the ability to, please consider supporting any of the Mr. Devs that have a Patreon or something like that, because I love this project. I think most of us do, and it is all community driven. So if you don't have the ability like me to code anything in FPGA, I don't think I'll ever be smart enough to do that, but I am able to at least give the bare minimum to a bunch of the different devs on the project. I try to get to all of them. So if you're in that position, please consider it, because without our support, there's just no way the project could continue. So support in any way you can, even if it's just spreading the word. But thanks as always to Sorg for keeping this project going and always updating it with the craziest stuff. So thank you all who's a part of the project, and I'll keep everybody updated on it. And speaking of Mr., RMC has just launched a fully customized case and I/O board they're calling the Mr. Multisystem. And overall, it's basically the same experience that you would get from any fully loaded analog plus digital Mr. kit. It's just their own imagining of a case design and their own version of the I/O board. Prices start at about $300 for just the I/O board and case, and for everything that you would need, including the DE10 Nano, a kit could sell for about $615, and there's tons of color choices and options. So if you're interested in this, definitely check out the RMC Retro store and see if this is the case that you'd like to go with. The only things that I will add is that there are a bunch of cool cases that just came out or are coming out, and it might be really hard to choose which one you would like. But the very good news is the DE10 Nano, the heart of the project, the RAM module, and then things like your micro SD card are going to be universal regardless of case. So let's say you took a look at this and said, well, this is cool and all, but I don't have the cash for this. I'm just going to use it naked with just the bare board and kind of buy the DE10 for now. You could totally just buy the case and I/O board at any time in the future and upgrade. Or if you have an older case from when the project first started and you want to, you want something new and different, you could grab this one. So it's kind of cool that, while these things are constantly evolving and people are adding new features, you still can upgrade without losing the initial investment and really the bare minimum that's needed to use the project. So my advice for anybody who wants to buy a Mr. right now is just figure out which case has all of the features you want, and if there's multiple, pick the one that you think looks best. And the Mr. Multisystem certainly is up there with one of the coolest cases I've seen. Hopefully I'll be able to do a overview video of just a couple of the Mr. cases I have available to me, just to show people the form, fit, and function. But the actual use is going to be pretty much the same. And I mean that with respect. I'm not trying to diminish any of the efforts all of these awesome devs have put into it. I mean that as a compliment, in that when you're using any of these cases, as long as you get a decent one, once you start playing your game, you forget that you're playing the Mr. It really feels like the original consoles. And the only time I'm reminded that I'm not on an original console or arcade board is usually a good thing. Like, I could program an extra button, or there's a feature that's not available on the original. So, I hope that didn't come out wrong. I hope I wasn't trying to say, oh, none of the cases matter. I meant the opposite. I meant they all do a good job, and the Mr. project's getting pretty solid. So once you start playing, it just feels like you're playing the original. So if you're interested, definitely check this out. Check out the links, and I'll have more info on some of these other cases that should be coming out relatively soon or just came out. I'll get to that video as soon as I can. Hopefully on the sooner side. Scanline City has just released their next round of metal plus plexi cases for arcade boards, and the ones now available are the previous Mortal Kombat 1 through 4, as well as The Simpsons, G.I. Joe, Sunset Riders, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, if you want more info on this, I did a live stream with Jonathan a while back, kind of showing off what these are and how you could use them, but the best way I could sum it up is if you want a premium quality case for your arcade boards, this is it. If you're on a budget, respectfully, this is not your choice. If you're on a budget, get yourself some anti-static bubble wrap, some mailers, padded mailers. I think you could even get anti-static padded mailers if you want. Just store them vertically, put them on a piece of cardboard whenever you're using them so it doesn't short anything out. You don't need to spend a lot of money to archive and store your arcade boards. But a lot of us want to. A lot of us just want a really good, solid solution. And I'm very happy that I picked up mine because I store them vertically and they look cool as hell. I have them kind of on a shelf underneath my mini Mr. Cade at the moment. They look very cool, but in use, I think, is really the benefit. Because yes, storing them vertically is better for the board because it's less chance of it bowing. But when I want to use these things, they're perfectly stable on end, or I could, they have feet on the bottom so that when I want to just put them flat and connect a super gun to it, I try to still do it vertically with the super gun, but sometimes depending on where you're at and what space you have, I could lay it flat as well. And there's certainly enough ventilation so I don't have to worry about anything not working. And it works with super guns. So a lot of these cases that I've used over the years, you need a JEMMA extension cable because the super gun won't just plug in and fit flush up against it. And out of the one, two, five I have sitting here at the moment. None of them have any issues with the super guns. Everything, like, you could plug a Hass or a minigun or the AshenWorks Mini directly into it without worrying about anything bumping up against it. So basically, if you have some extra cash to spend and you want something that looks cool and is functionally awesome, check out the live stream I did, check out the pictures, and seriously consider these. There's other good options out there, but these so far have been my favorites lately. As far as the new contenders go, I really love the metal and plexi, because there's just, having both gives a weird depth to the look. The plexi doesn't smudge, it doesn't leave fingerprints. I don't know. Check out the live stream. I'm going to just keep rambling. And I said the same things in the stream. So check that out if you're interested. And at the very least, check out the link to Scanline City's PCB page, because they got a bunch of very cool cases now. Pre-orders have just opened for physical editions of Axiom Verge 2, and I want to start out by saying that there are some very reasonably priced basic options in there that many of us might be interested in. You could buy either game, Axiom Verge 1 or 2, for $35 each, or my favorite in this, and something I think I'm going to pick up just to have, is one case that includes two physical editions, Axiom Verge 1 and 2 in the same case, and that's $50, which I think is an incredibly reasonable price for two very awesome games, and I think it's neat that there's two in the same case. That's available at the moment for PS4 and Switch. I don't know when the PS5 version's coming out, or if there'll be any of these extra physical editions available, so I would grab the PS4 version if you were waiting on a Sony version of the game. But while that's the value that I choose to go for, and I really like that those are available, if you want some insane collector's edition with everything ever made Axiom Verge related, including vinyl records of the soundtracks for both, and anything that you could imagine, you could pick that up. There's a $350 or over that, I think, fan bundle that includes everything, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff backing up all the way to the basic $35 edition. So that's, while I'm excited to share any edition of the game, because I did really love both of them. I've been talking about it since the first one came out. I just did a bunch of posts related to it. A huge fan of both of the games, but I definitely got more excited that there's just a really fairly priced physical option available for both games now. And of course, if you already own both games, you could still pick up the soundtracks and different other cool things. So really, from $35 all the way to over $350, there's every Axiom Verge option you could imagine. And I believe pre-orders are only open till the end of the month, so you got to jump on it. But that's totally fair, in my opinion. Having a pre-order sell out in 4 minutes sucks. Having a pre-order sell out in a month, I don't think you could really ask for anything more than that. So if you're into this and you want physical copies of Axiom Verge, definitely check out the post and the link to Limited Run Games. So very often in the retro gaming hardware nerd world, we discuss developers' intent. So on these modern flat panels, there's no way that a developer from the late 80s would have ever known what it would look like, or how it would scale, or anything else. But what about back in the day? Were they developing in RGB? Were they referencing composite video? Or, what about color palettes and stuff like that? And it's often a debate that's kind of fruitless, because you can't really get in the heads of all of these people from 30 years ago. However, Nicole Brannigan, who is a developer that created that game Space Ava that I loved and did a live stream on, as well as a couple of other games, did a blog post that's upscaling from the perspective of their own pixel game art. And it was a freaking awesome post. She basically went through and first did a disclaimer that says, basically, don't worry about the author's intent. Play games how you like them. I love that. I love how she kind of did a quick overview and opened with that, because it's true. As long as you're playing a game and enjoying it, there's nothing wrong, especially when it comes to retro or retro style games. I always make a big deal about your original console plugged into any CRT with composite video is an amazing experience, period. You don't need the best scalers. You don't need an RGB monitor. Some people prefer it, some people don't. That's all cool. But as long as you're enjoying the game, that's all that matters. However, we're nerds, so I want to learn more than that, and it's exactly what Nicole went into in the blog post, comparing emulation screenshots to different sections of the game, and also she went into what it looked like to draw the artwork for the game in the program that was used to draw it versus what it actually ended up looking like in the game. And basically, I mean, just like the title said, it was what all of this upscaling and changing of the game looks like from the artists and developers perspective of it. So if you've ever been a party to any of those conversations and you've ever really wondered what developers think about when they're making games, especially now when you have so much to consider, if you have a game on an original Genesis cartridge, are people going to be only using it on CRTs, only using it on flat panels? What type of each? Is it square pixels? Are you going to get a round moon or an oval moon? There's so many different things to discuss, and Nicole really nailed it in this blog post. So anybody that's interested in this, I strongly recommend reading this one because I certainly enjoyed the heck out of it. Will's Console Mods has just reopened an interest checklist for the PS Uno Retro, which is a Bluetooth adapter for PlayStation 1 and 2 consoles that allows you to connect a long list of controllers to the console, including PS4 and 5 controllers, which I think is really awesome. The price is about $35 plus shipping, and while orders aren't open, if you scroll down to the end of the page and fill out the form, you'll get notified as soon as pre-orders are available. So it's kind of what a lot of stores and companies are stuck doing these days with part shortages and everything else. It's just much easier to do this than taking pre-orders or making bulk of them and selling. But hopefully this will eventually just turn into a product that's in stock and available to purchase, because it looks pretty cool and it has a bunch of neat advantages, like being able to emulate the multi-tap adapter. So to be clear, it's not going to somehow make player 1 and 2 all go through the player 1 receiver dongle. However, if you have one of the many games that supports a multi-tap, you could connect multiple Bluetooth controllers to one receiver to emulate the multi-tap, which would have just plugged into one of the ports anyway. So that's pretty cool. Also, this is all based off of the Blue Retro platform designed by Darth Cloud. And that platform is very low latency, and it is able to do things like button mapping and firmware updates right over Bluetooth, I believe. Although there is still a USB firmware adapter, or a USB adapter you could buy if you want to do any kind of manual firmware updates, and they're like $5 each. So as a nerd, I would probably pick up one of these anyway, just in case. But you don't need it. It's just, that's my nerdy nature of wanting to make sure I have the tool to fix something if I need to. And overall, it looks cool. Some of the latency results show that you can get less than half a frame of lag with a PS4 or PS5 controller, which is awesome. I mean, for all intents and purposes, when gaming with a controller on PS1 and 2, half a frame of lag is pretty much zero. I don't think that's going to be registered in any of the controller port polling. I don't think that's going to ever result in any kind of game being lost or your move being fumbled. So I would say that this overall looks like an awesome solution for people that want to use Bluetooth controllers on the PS1 or 2. And for me personally, I think I'd like to try the PS4 controller on it, because while I do tend to like playing most consoles with their original controllers, PS4 and 5 controllers are basically just better versions of the original. I know there's probably half the people in the comments are going to be like, "Don't you dare mock the original PlayStation controller. It is the GOAT." But I don't know. I feel like their controllers have certainly progressed over the years and gotten better. So any questions or any curiosity about this, check out the linked page and scroll to the very bottom if you want to fill out the interest check form. The 2021 edition of the Sonic Hacking Contest begins next week, October 11th, where users could submit their own ROM hacks or fan-made Sonic games in order to be voted for winners of a bunch of different categories. And every year, there's a bunch of awesome stuff that comes out of this. I know Chris covered this last year and showed some of the highlights of it as well. So if you're into ROM hacking, modding, and anything Sonic the Hedgehog related, I would definitely pay attention to it. YouTube user Red Hot Sonic has just uploaded the trailer for this year's contest, and it's something that always puts out some very good results. So any fans of that stuff, start paying attention next Monday, and hopefully Chris will have a follow-up post with the different winners and some of the coolest things to come out of it. Well, that's it for this week. This is the latest I've recorded one of these in a long time. I think there was one other late recording right after I moved, so hopefully I still did it with the same enthusiasm that I'm feeling right now, but I certainly don't have the energy that I normally do. So hopefully it all came out all right. But as always, thank you to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to everybody that supports on any of the platforms, because it is you who is keeping all of this stuff going. So thank you all very much, and cheers with my glass of water to all of you. I'll be back next week with hopefully a bit more energy.